images pulled up?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go up to the top of the screen over here, and you're going to click the little green one that does the screen share. And I'm going to select you so it hangs out on you the whole time.
Oh, good.
You're looking gorgeous.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so I'm just finding the screen.
There's me.
Okay, can you see you?
Yep.
Okay, can you see my photos now?
Yep, perfect. So just pull them up nice and big for us.
Okay.
There we are.
All right. Cool.
Okay, so you've gotten to sit in on some of these with the other people, right?
Sorry?
You've gotten to watch some of these with some of the other students? Some of the other apprentices?
I only watched little bits. I didn't get
Okay.
a chance to watch right to the end, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's fine. Basically what we're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to tell me what went into creating them and, you know, if you struggled with anything or how happy you are with the image, and then I'm going to critique it and give it my thoughts. And then I'm going to grade you on a scale of 1 to 3. 1 being that it shows promise, but you kind of missed the mark. 2 being commendable, meaning that it's a good photo. 3 being exemplary, and meaning that you just rocked it hardcore. And I am super excited after seeing all the photos you've been sharing. So,
yay! Okay.
Okay.
This one here. Okay, this was technically meant to be a levitation photo because I hadn't done many of them and I wanted to see if I could do it again. So it actually ended up being sort of a fail, but not really. So I just didn't have the camera on the right angle. So I was meant to be floating, and but obviously just the ground behind me or in front of me it just didn't look like I was flying at all. But so I just created a shadow there and just made it look as if I was standing on the ground, which seems to have worked. It's all natural light apart from the light that I've created in Photoshop with the beams. And I just wanted to create sort of a really kind of subtle concept that wasn't too obvious. It was something that people could sort of put their own storyline into, and I don't know if I have anything else to say about that. Yeah, it's I really like this photo.
Okay, so this is a self-portrait. Can you tell me a little bit about how you set it up? Like, is that something that you're doing frequently?
I don't do it that often, no, but I was at a friend's place and she had this great driveway that had all of these trees around it, and so I said, hey, let's do a shoot, and she was the one that pressed the trigger. I set it up so that like I showed her how I was doing it and everything. Yeah, she just helped me out with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really, really love the light on this shot, both the natural and the beams. I think I've seen worse as far as adding faux light in, but I do think that if it's a trained eye, that you can tell that they were photoshopped in and that they're not genuine. So, but it doesn't really bother me either. Like, I don't mind knowing it was photoshopped as long as it's photoshopped well, which in this case I think it is done pretty well. But for me personally, I'm always looking to complete the illusion. What is the trail of things following you? Are those pine cones?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I'm imagining that they were supposed to be levitating as well.
No, they were meant to be a trail, and I'm just dropping it so you can actually see. One is sort of in mid-drop.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I love the leading lines of the trail path that they take the viewer right to you. There's little bit of a sort of a perspective gap, I guess, just because it's so dark in the diagonal corners and so light in the other ones. And I would have actually have liked to have seen you maybe dodge and burn that bottom corner a little bit just to give the illusion that all of the light was coming from one, because right now it's just this strip of light and you're kind of losing a little bit of the perspective that it's actually following the length of the road a little bit. So that throws me off just a little bit visually. Specifically because there's also this like shadow haloed around you from like below your hips to right around your head, and your eyes always go to the brightest part of the painting first. So I think that we kind of lose you a little bit in that darkness there, and then it lightens up again behind you down in the corner where there's nothing going on. So I might have just played with the lighting a little bit more. I would have also been interested to see it shot at a little bit more of a shallow depth of field, just to help really pull the viewer's eyes to the center and to you as the subject. But overall, I think it's a really, really beautiful shot. I'm not entirely sure that the storyline is strong enough to tell it itself, and I'm not sure that it's strong enough that people can really follow and kind of build this story themselves, because there's too many of these random elements going on that just aren't quite fitting enough to put the pieces together. So I'm going to give you 2. I think it's commendable, but I don't think you quite hit the mark with what you were looking for.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I can see what you mean by the lights, actually. It's really good to see what you see.
Yeah, overall, I really do like it, though. I am pretty in love with your work every time you share it. So,
oh, thank you.
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Okay, this one is my most recent one. I went out to do a sort of almost like a practice lifestyle beauty shoot that there's no storyline. It's just sort of where I want to go in my career. I want to practice beauty, fashion, on top of having conceptual portraits as well. But so I took a couple of friends out, and I wanted to play around with my new reflectors that I have, and because never before had I had any sort of catch light in eyes outside. I'd never really shot too much outside with models. These girls aren't models, though. Well, this girl isn't a model, and so it was really good practice for this. And I also wanted to spend quite a bit of time in Photoshop because I enjoy retouching, but I haven't done too much of it, and I'd like to get into beauty retouching. So I spent some time on it, retouching her face, so that, I mean, she's overdone, but yeah, it was good practice for this one. So yeah, it's mainly meant to be a beauty portrait.
So I really, really love the idea of this shot. I think you are so close to this being a perfect image. Things that jump out at me right away, you're getting a lot of color cast from like the strawberry blonde of her hair, and I can see it along the side of her chin, and I can see it in the underneath of her neck below her jawline. And then because of the way the sun's hitting her, we lost it entirely. So her hair is kind of coming down and severing her décolletage in half. And there's a very stark color difference between one side or the other, to the point that I had to look twice and see if that was actually like a shirt that she had under the jacket. So I would probably go in and just warm that up and try to match that to the color toning of the rest of the skin on her face.
I think there was a goldish sort of reflector as well. The reflector was goldish.
Okay, then yeah, then that's exactly what it is. But in either case, whatever the color is bouncing from, it's not hitting that side, and it's really noticeable for me visually in this shot. I also am not necessarily convinced that at this tight of a crop, that the jacket was the right choice, because there's very, again, you're shooting almost everything about her in very sharp focus. So there's these lines that are leading away instead of leading towards her with the zippers and the seams and stuff. And it's visually interesting without being essential. So it's drawing your attention away from her, and she should be the star of the shot. So I might have either shot her bare topped, or shot her in something that was just very smooth and very plain that let her kind of be the star of the image. I love the catch lights in her eyes. It's absolutely beautiful. I adore the lighting on her face. You just have this gorgeous, just perfection of butterfly lighting going on with her, but I think that you over retouched her eyes just a little bit too much, to the point that we went beyond them being the focus and to them looking retouched to the point of fake. So I might go back in and just pull back on that, because I have the feeling that she has very strong eyes to begin with. And I would have just toned it down a little bit, because I'm not seeing any actual shading or shape to her eyes that's giving the illusion that it's round. So it's actually flattening out her eyes and making them look a little two-dimensional, rather than having that kind of sphere feeling. And a lot of times you can actually aid in that by just drawing a little shadow on the actual whites and irises directly below the eyelashes to give it the shadow that the lashes usually put on it. So maybe I'll do a tutorial on that later. I also think that her teeth are breaking up her mouth in an unflattering way. I probably would have had her close her mouth, or just part it to the point that her lips weren't touching, but not that so that her teeth were the focus. Like, it looks like she was almost on the verge of smiling, and you caught it right before she gave the big one, like she was here instead of, you know. But still, overall, I think this is a really, really beautiful image of her. I love the freckles. I love the retouching on it. I do love the potency of the eyes and that stare that she's giving. The catch lights are fantastic. I really do think that overall this is an exemplary image, even with everything I said. So I'm going to give you a 3.
Yay! Cool. Yeah, no, I can see what you said about that. I can see all the faults in my photos, actually, but yeah, it's good to know. Okay, next image, and this is my infamous levitation image. So this was done a little while ago. I wanted to test out levitation, so I set up my camera. It's at a set point, and I had to run back and forth to the camera because I didn't have a remote. So I just leaned on I think it was just like a washing basket or something, laid on a washing basket, and took a few shots, and then took shots of the books in there. I just held the books in there. And then obviously put it all together in Photoshop and masked out the basket and my hands and everything like that.
Okay. So I actually think that levitation photos are becoming the spot coloring of our decade. Like in the 90s, it was all the spot coloring. In the 70s, it was that white vignette. And I have been seeing levitation photos everywhere, so I'm a little bit over them, but I actually really like this one from you. It's one of the better ones that I've seen. As soon as you start doing composite images, I always start looking for the telltale signs that it's fake, because then it's unbelievable. And that's really hard when you're editing out this many elements, but I do feel like it's a little bit smudgy and a little bit false along the end of the line underneath with your arm, and your hair's a little bit soft at the very ends of it to the back of your head. That tells me that it's obviously composited. I think that you did really, really well at the top book with the shadow on the wall. I would have liked to have seen a very subtle but still present shadow for the other one that's by your feet, because I think that it's floating a little two-dimensionally. Rather than being three-dimensional. Same thing with the third book. There has to be something else there that's grounding it, as if, as if it's falling through air or it's just floating. But I love the setup. I love the hourglasses and all the little details in the back, and I love the bedding, and the things that you pulled. I actually think that it's a stronger image because you're looking away. The other telltale sign is the bottom of the fabric of your dress or your nightgown. It wouldn't be sitting up like that. You can tell that you were laying on something and it's flat. It would be hanging, because it's not fitting to your body. So I probably would have just taken that and liquefy and just pulled that down. And then I would have given your figure, I would have accented your figure underneath just by dodging and burning so that we could see the back, the line of your back underneath the fabric, so that it was still flattering, but it didn't look like the fabric of the dress is just sitting on something, which it shouldn't be because you're supposedly floating. The only other thing with the posing, and this is so hard too, like I'm really pulling you apart, but this is really, really difficult to do, and I do think it's well done. The left leg also looks like it's up a little bit too high, and I think it would have been, the foot would have been pointed down a little bit more if it was actually hanging. So I think if you're doing levitation images, you almost have to find something that you can literally drape yourself over and get yourself high enough up that it's only on your back so that you can really just kind of hang all the way off it. Because you would imagine that if some force was pulling you upward, that your head would also be back, especially with the positioning that you have, that you look like you're unconscious and you're dreaming and you're turned away. I would imagine that your head would be kind of lifeless and falling down as well. Still, that said, I think it's a really beautiful image. I love that you added the elements of the books and that it's not just you floating. It looks like other things around you are floating as well. I love the color. I love the negative space of the wall and that it draws you in. And I think it's a really beautiful shot all the way around. So I'm going to give you a 2. I'm going to give you commendable. I don't think that you quite hit exemplary, but it's such a difficult thing to master that I still think it's really impressive.
Okay, thank you. Next image. Okay. This one, I went out on a shoot with a bit of a group. I was invited out. So someone had organized this girl. It was meant to be a Red Riding Hood shoot. And this girl was just fantastic. She was a really great model. And this cloak here I brought so that I could put on her when I got to shoot. And because I made this cloak, so I really like the color of it, and I don't have much to say about this. I made sure that there was a lower level for this image. I wanted to get down so that I had a little bit of green in front of the lens, so that there was that blurry sort of depth of field there. And I instructed her, to look away, and I mean, as well as, touch the plants as well. I wanted some sort of action in it instead of her just sitting there and looking out.
Now, is this shot natural light? Do you have any reflectors or modifiers?
It's all natural light.
Nothing, just the sun was out and cooperating that day.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, so I'm gonna just preface this and tell you that this is just an exemplary image. I just love the shot all the way around. The light is beautiful. Her expression has this dreamy fairy tale feeling to it that totally matches the scene and the decor. I love the hair. I love the makeup. I love the robe. I love the plants. I love the shallow depth of field. I just think it's a really, really beautiful image. The only critiques that I have is that as you're looking at it for a minute, the black dark color on the inside of the robe for me kind of jumps and makes the connection with the tree that's coming out of the top of her head. So I may have just blurred the background even a little further in post, just to really soften it, or have edited that out with some of the less prominent trunks and branches, just so that you didn't really have that severing at the top of her head. But overall, this is just a really beautiful, gorgeous shot. In the very, very front of the focus, it's so shallow that you're just getting the wisps of color from that leaf in the front. I would have liked to have seen maybe just a couple more nuances of that, just so that it doesn't look out of place in front of her. But again, like I'm just nitpicking to find something wrong with it, because it's just a gorgeous shot all the way around. Well done.
Thank you. I'm pretty proud of this one as well. I love the colors so much. That's the kind of colors that I really enjoy working with, actually.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
And this is the last image. I think it is, yep. This is a part of a university project that I had to do. It's a series that I worked on called Corrupt Elements, and this girl is meant to be the embodiment of water, the element water, and obviously it's polluted and corrupt. So this is a pool in my backyard with black lining underneath her, and the water was absolutely freezing, so she was a real trooper. And I had a really big diffuser, one of those big round diffusers that was blocking the sun, so that it wasn't too blown out on her face. And the tattoo that you can kind of see there on her shoulder, that's actually meant to be there. It was part of the series. That's actually the water symbol, the alchemical, is that how you say it? Water symbol. And also I really like the bubbles as well in this. This was probably one of the only ones that I got with bubbles. I just managed to capture going under the water and coming back up, and yeah, I managed to capture the bubbles there as well.
Okay. I gotta tell you, this one's not necessarily one of my favorites that I've seen from you. I love the idea of it, but I think, and again, really, really difficult to do anything with facial expressions when they're concentrating on not drowning, and getting water up their nose. I think it's the water level and the fact that what you're drawing attention to is her nostrils and her forehead, and the rest of it is pretty much getting lost. And I've never had anybody come in and go, yeah, my boyfriend really loves my nostrils, and I think my forehead is a really good feature. Like, usually we're looking for the eyes, which I do think that you got with the color. I do really love whoever did the makeup that day did a fabulous job. I really love the focus on the eyes.
That was me.
Oh, well, then well done. So you're getting points back for that. But I think that she's just kind of getting a little bit visually lost in it, where the water coming up along her face is kind of just muddying her overall impact on the photo. So I think I might have liked to have seen you actually pull her face out so that the water was around her face and not necessarily submerged, or in contrast that she was completely submerged and just under the water. You know, that's really hard too, because you have a much harder time getting that beautiful light that I'm falling in love with your images for, because it breaks on the surface of the water and it just doesn't reflect the same way. I actually didn't even notice the tattoo until you said something, so I feel like if that was meant to be a prominent part, that it might have been either placed somewhere that it was more visual, or that you had taken better care to not cover that specifically so that it was more visually impactful. I do love her fingers intertwined around the netting. I can't tell what the thing in the top left corner is. For me, there always has to be enough visual information for me to understand what's actually in the photograph, unless it's really shallow depth of field and you can't tell anyway. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of her hair on the surface, because you kind of lose it in the blue, which I would be okay with if it didn't come back up to the surface, because it's just severing her hair in that section. I think that it might have done well if maybe we had added a little blur to it in post and just kept her eyes really sharp, and maybe brought in the bubbles and let everything else kind of become secondary to that. But this one's just not doing it for me, I gotta tell you. And it's not a bad image. I just think with the message that you were trying to go for, I couldn't pull that out if you hadn't told me what it was ahead of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the idea of it. I think it's something that you could definitely reshoot, but I don't think you quite hit it on this one. So I'm gonna give you a show's promise. I like the concept, and I think that you could rock it. I just don't think you quite did here.
Thank you.
So
I keep saying that.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's good.
everybody's like, "Hey, thanks for tearing apart my work and making me feel awful about the things I pour my heart into. You're awesome." Okay, so
No, that's really good.
so you can go up and you can click off the screen share and come join me again so I can see your lovely face.
Okie dokie.
And then we've got about almost 30 minutes. So I want to talk to you a little bit. I know you're going to school. You just started like your new semester, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah, I'm only 3 weeks in, I think.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you're looking to do and why the Arcanum, and you're going to school for photography right now, yeah?
Yes, but it's mainly more visual and theory. We want to be doing, but it's teaching, well, meant to be teaching me a concept and yeah, that part of the art world, which I guess is definitely a little with having a meaning behind my photographs, but it's not where I want to be going in the future.
Okay,
So
I know I lost you. Let's try that again.
can you
still with us? There we go. That may just be on my end, but I lost you for a minute. So I heard not the direction that I necessarily want to go.
Yes, that's
Okay, so we're having some trouble with Danielle's connectivity, but I'm going to see if I can add her back in quickly. And we'll go from there. So, so these are basically how the critiques work. I do them a little bit differently in my cohort because it's really important to me to not only be going through your work and the potential for mastery in that, but also to see, you know, where it is that you're looking to go, and if the way that you're approaching your art and your study of that, if that's actually conducive to where you're trying to get. Because, you know, you can take the most beautiful family portraits in the world, but if what you want to be doing is fashion photography, you know, it's not going to necessarily help you, even though the skills can. So let me see if I can get her back in here so that we can talk to her a little bit about what she wants to do. Try working on it. So, yay, the joys of doing things live. So what I might do is I might actually stop the broadcast and then hop back in on the second half, and I'll just put them together and post later. And aren't you guys super excited that you get to hang out and watch me talk to myself on the screen while I try to nonchalantly fix the technical difficulties? Let me see here. Okay, so we're just going to stop broadcast and then we'll